Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm actually really excited to see where the handheld gaming market is going. The Steam Deck was a game changer. It proved how much could be done with a handheld system, and while it obviously wasn't giving the Switch a run for its money in terms of total sales, the numbers were extremely impressive. There are now a ton of Steam Deck competitors popping up, and with Nintendo apparently working on a Switch follow-up system, I'm honestly excited to see what happens next for handheld gaming. The Switch is wildly outdated, and it's about time we saw the handheld market get pushed forward, and I'm actually excited to see how Nintendo responds to the recent rise of handheld PCs. But you know what I'm really tired of hearing? I'm really tired of hearing people try to make the argument that the Switch somehow has a technical edge or consumer-friendly edge over the Steam Deck, despite being hilariously underpowered and owned by a company that still insists on charging $70 for 720p.
Give me money. Money me. Money now. Me a money needing a lot now.
Not too long ago, a viewer sent me this article in which yet another game journalist tries to make the tired comparison between the Switch and the Steam Deck and once again completely misses the point, and in some cases just flat out lies about the two systems. And I'm honestly on the fence about whether or not this was written maliciously or not, because it starts perfectly harmlessly, and ultimately it seems like they're making the argument that the Steam Deck is the better buy. But the deeper you get into this thing, the more backwards and just bizarre it gets. Like, you can almost hear the bones breaking with how hard they're bending over backwards to make Nintendo sound more appealing in some cases. So I couldn't help but give this one the old 1-2 response. So if you're ready to hear some more really weird game journalist ramblings, strap in your seatbelt and we can start reading this article together. And I like how right at the top of the article, there's this little thing that says recommendations are independently chosen by Reviewed's editors. Purchases made through the links below may earn us and our publishing partners a commission. There's the reason you made this article. The Nintendo Switch and Valve Steam Deck are a world apart as far as handheld gaming consoles go. Oh, but by all means, compare them directly. But many have understandably drawn comparisons between the two. Whether it's the display, battery life, design, performance, or general availability of games, there is a lot to compare between the two consoles. And while both were created for two different groups of gamers, if you're serious about mobile gaming, you're probably intrigued by both options. So if you have money to drop on a handheld console but aren't sure which one to get, here's what you should know about the Switch and the Deck. Okay, Section 1, Battery Life. All three of Nintendo Switch's models, the original Switch, Switch OLED, and mobile-only Switch Lite, have a longer battery life than Valve's Steam Deck, ranging from 5 to 8 hours. The Deck managed to only last 4 hours in our testing, and sometimes the battery drains in as fast as 2 hours. High-fidelity games like Cyberpunk 2077 suck up a lot of power, so the best way to get longer battery life out of the Steam Deck is to play the same or similar low-fidelity games that exist for the Nintendo Switch on the Steam Deck, or limit your max power draw with a third-party tool. Our pick, Nintendo Switch. So far, so fair. Generally speaking, the Switch does have better battery life than the Steam Deck, and there are ways to beef up your Steam Deck's battery life, and I don't personally think that the battery life should be something keeping you from buying a Steam Deck if you want one, but generally speaking, the Switch is going to last longer on one charge than the Steam Deck will. Like I said, this article starts off innocent enough, but things get really weird the further we go, so strap in. Okay, Section 2 is Display, and this section is also perfectly fair. I'll throw it on screen here, and you can pause it if you want to read through it. It's perfectly harmless. I don't want to waste your guys' time here. I know you want to get into the really rough stuff, so we'll just move along to the next section, which is connectivity, and I'll slap that on screen here too if you want to pause it and read, because again, this isn't where things get really bad yet. So we'll just move ahead to the next section, which is game compatibility, and this is where things get really rough, buddy. Theoretically, the PC games you purchase from the Steam store should be able to run on the Deck as well. It's one of the Deck's biggest claims to fame. Unfortunately, that's not entirely the case. While Valve has confirmed Deck compatibility for over thousands of games it sells on its Steam store, there's still a bunch left unaccounted for. So Valve created an entire ranking system, which you can read more about here, to let gamers know how many of their games are compatible and how well they work. There's no question that if you buy a game for the Nintendo Switch, it will work on the Switch, though some newer games like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are beginning to butt up against the console's hardware limitations. That is a fucking generous way to put it. The Switch has already been out for a few years, unlike the Deck, and has a closed ecosystem with thousands of available games. So unlike checking the compatibility of Steam games for the Deck, if you've got a Switch, you just hit the buy button, download, and play. No extra thought required. Our pick, Nintendo Switch. So let's just reword this section in non-pretentious game journalist English. You're arguing that the Switch has better game compatibility because not every Steam game works on the Steam Deck. Never mind the fact that there are currently over 8,000 officially playable games on the Steam Deck, and that's just through Steam directly. That's not getting into all the emulators and non-Steam games you can run on this thing. It's over 8,000. Insert Dragon Ball meme. Also, just throwing this out there, there's a massive misunderstanding with a lot of people regarding the Steam Deck verification system. Like, just because a game isn't Steam Deck verified doesn't mean it's unplayable. Like, a lot of the time, unverified Steam Deck games just have a handful of performance issues that don't actually impact your moment-to-moment enjoyment. And ironically, a lot of unverified Steam Deck games run better than some of Nintendo's own first-party Switch titles. Obviously, that's not a universal thing, but just something to keep in mind. But how many games are available on the Switch, since you're so married to the idea of officially available games? Let's just see how many the Switch has. Right now, there are a little less than 4,500 games available on the Switch, which is obviously more games than anyone will ever have the time to play. But since you brought up performance as an issue for available games, we now have to talk about the Switch's performance on those games, which is probably not a can of worms you wanted to open. The Switch's performance is abysmal. Read this part of the article again. You deliberately say that despite the Steam Deck having a larger game library, the Switch has the edge because of a supposed lack of performance issues on the available games. Are you fucking serious right now? Game performance on the Switch is embarrassing, especially in AAA games that Nintendo is now charging $70 for. Tears of the Kingdom is gonna max out at 30 frames per second while displaying at a whopping 900p in docked mode and 720p in handheld. 70 smackaroos, please. Or what about the rampant technical issues in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which you kinda just glossed over? Or the fact that a full-priced re-release of Super Mario 64 was still running at 30 frames per second a couple years ago. Or that time when Hyrule Warriors had a frame rate in the low 20s. Or how about the fact that playing Smash Ultimate online would give you 12 frames of input delay on a perfect connection? You make the argument that despite the Steam Deck having many more games than the Switch still deserves the point because the games run better or run perfectly or don't have technical issues, and that's just plainly not true. Okay, moving on though, this new section is called Price. Both the Switch and Steam Deck come in 3 different configurations, but it's the Switch that not only has the better priced gaming console, but also the best value. Oh fucking boy, this will be fun. On the Nintendo Switch side, there's the Switch Lite, $200, the Switch, $300, and the Switch OLED, $350. The Lite and regular Switch come with 32 gigs of storage, while the OLED version comes with 64 gigs, and of course the OLED version has a better display that's nearly an inch larger than the Switch and an inch and a half larger than the Switch Lite. Not sure what screen size has to do with price because we already talked about screen size, I thought. The Steam Deck starts at $400 for 64 gigs of eMMC storage, which also has the slowest storage speeds of the 3. The middle model is $529 and comes with 256 gigs of storage, and the high-end model costs $650 with 512 gigs of SSD storage. There are no other differences between the 3 models as far as design, and you can even upgrade the storage yourself. However, the 512 gig version comes with the most perks, including an anti-glare etched glass display. Additionally, the most expensive Nintendo Switch can do everything the least expensive Steam Deck can do. Really, can it now? Nintendo has Valve beat on both price and value. Without question, our pick, Nintendo Switch.
Oh, you like that one, huh?
We do not get a lot of humor here, and when we do, it's wonderful.
Oh.
Tad, come in here! Say it to Tad when he comes in.
You know what I find funny about this section, other than the obvious things? There is literally no mention of game pricing here, or the fact that you have to pay to play your own games online on the Switch, or the fact that Switch games are hilariously overpriced. Like, all you have to do is look at the eShop compared to the Steam store. Mario Kart 8, 6-year-old games, still $60. Smash Bros. Ultimate, 5-year-old game, still $60. Mario Odyssey, a fucking launch title, still $60. Pokemon Violet, a game that was hilariously broken, nope, doesn't matter, still $60. And that's not even mentioning the minimum $20 membership if you want to play your own games online. Meanwhile, game prices on the Steam Deck are as low as you could ever want them to be because it's a fucking PC. Steam sales, game keys, emulators, fucking irony alert when what you said here about how the Switch can do everything the least expensive Steam Deck can do. Yeah, except give you reasonably priced games, which is kind of important. So yes, buying a Switch instead of a Steam Deck will save you $100, $200. But the price of literally everything else is going to make that a seriously lopsided comparison in a matter of weeks. Literally, the second you start buying games, the Steam Deck becomes the cheaper option. But you're a game journalist, and you gotta play nice with Nintendo, so we're not allowed to talk about that. For most people, picking up a Switch over the Deck probably makes the most sense right now, especially if you're not an avid PC gamer, but while the Nintendo Switch technically edges past the Steam Deck thanks to better battery life, display, and overall value, both were created with different audiences in mind. Further, it's hard to compare a well-established console to a recently released one, so keep in mind that the current state of the Steam Deck is not its final form. If you want to play Nintendo exclusives like Animal Crossing, you'll need a Switch. Except actually no, you won't. Emulation exists. But if you're primarily a PC gamer and purchase all your games from the Steam store, the Deck will complement your gaming PC nicely. There are a lot of games available on both platforms like Stardew Valley, Carry On, Oxenfree, Life is Strange True Colors, and many others. That is a bizarre lineup of games. But again, if you are first and foremost a Nintendo gamer, then stick with the Switch if you don't already have one. How would you be a Nintendo gamer right now if you don't have a Switch? Hasn't it been like their only viable system in like 5 years? If you're primarily a PC gamer and own all or most of your games on Steam, then the Steam Deck makes more sense. You can emulate older Nintendo and some Switch titles and older console games on it, but if you want to play Nintendo classics on the Switch, you'll need a Nintendo Switch Online subscription to access those. Oh, now we can talk about that. After we've already made all the points at the very bottom of the article, now we can be honest about that. Still not talking about game pricing though. That's a no-no. That's a no-no topic. However, both handheld gaming consoles are appealing to gamers like myself who land in the center of the Switch Deck Venn diagram, so if you want to buy both, go for it. No one is stopping you. Just keep in mind that both consoles come with their own issues like Joy-Con drift on the Switch and battery life on the Deck. You also don't have access to the Switch's operating system on a granular level, like you do with the Steam Deck, but we also found the Deck's Linux-powered desktop can be clunky to navigate. Nintendo games would never be clunky, no, don't even imply that. Still, you have a greater flexibility and can do more with the device if you're patient. And that is how the article ends. This was just a weird one. It was a weird one, okay? It was a weird one. I wouldn't recommend buying a Switch right now. Like, definitely not right now. Performance on Switch games is fucking dog shit, and there's going to be a Switch 2 soon, apparently. So, like, just wait. Just wait. Like, if you want to play Nintendo games authentically with a Nintendo system, just wait for the Switch 2. Just wait for the Switch 2. Don't buy a Switch right now, especially after Nintendo admitted they're gonna start charging $70 for games. Like, you really want to pay $70 for this level of performance? Have fun with that. $70, please. You know, I make a lot of videos about like console versus PC. I will say that Steam Deck versus Switch is a lot more of an interesting, it's a lot more of a fair fight, you know? But even still, I wouldn't recommend a Switch. I just can't. I just can't recommend a Switch. The Steam Deck can do pretty much everything the Switch can do. Emulation performance may vary on certain Switch games, but you know, with time that's gonna be ironed out. But the point I'm getting at is when you compare the things the Switch can do, but the Steam Deck can't, give it some time and the Steam Deck will be able to do those things. Whereas things the Steam Deck can do that the Switch can't do, you're never gonna get those things on the Switch. It's just not gonna happen. So, you know, whatever, I guess. Toodles.